Welcome into your recruiting report with Otis Kirk as he joins us on the line. And Otis, first and foremost, what a win for Arkansas yesterday. I know that was exciting for everyone in the Arkansas fan base to see. What did you think of that win?
I loved the win. I hated my phone after the game ended. I was trying to do Zoom with Sam and Buffer and Felipe, and my phone was exploding. I mean, exploding with text. Beep, beep, beep. And I'm trying to, no, I mean, seriously, it was great. I mean, hey, it's good. I know that Sam's correct when he says they weren't part of that 20 game, but it doesn't matter. I mean, they were recruiting against that list. So, I mean, no matter what anyone says, that was a negative hanging over Arkansas's recruiting head, no matter who was responsible for it, which they weren't, but I'm just saying it was hanging over their head, and that's removed, and that's huge for the staff, it's huge for the kids, it's huge for the recruits, it's just huge for everybody because even though it wasn't them, the per se guy, it's good that it's gone and they can compete here and try to get this thing going.
Yeah, you say your phone's blowing up, and I'm sure as a recruiting guy, that's not a bad thing after a game like that. Sam Pittman said in his press conference that this really was big for recruiting, and that now they've been trying to tell recruits to come to Arkansas, and now they have a reason to. What are you hearing from guys that are Arkansas is interested in and guys who are interested in Arkansas about that win?
Yeah, I got on Twitter after the game last night and wrote a story, and I used and it turned out it was all the commitment kids except for I didn't use Cameron Ball, but he did have a tweet about a hog, and Cameron Ball from Atlanta is one of their top prospects, 6'5", 300-pound defensive tackle who can runs on the relay team, if that tells you anything, Alyssa. He's on the relay team. The recruits were excited. That was a credibility deal because I'm telling you, schools were going to start. No, they weren't going to start. They were going to continue to use that against Arkansas. Don't go to Arkansas. You can't win. And I think the recruits are really going to be. It was obvious last night they were excited. They were on Twitter about it. And not just the recruits, but guys like Malik Hornsby, kids we talked about, last year at least, other recruits, Jashad Stewart, a bunch of kids that signed last year that came in, Kari Johnson. I mean, there was a bunch of kids that came in last year that played some part in the game, but maybe not that big a role, maybe no part. But the fact that they were excited, they see I made the right decision. I'm glad to be part of this, and I think that's what was huge. I mean, it's refreshing. I mean, you keep losing, and you just get into that form of where you almost accept it and you don't ever want to get that, or people get to the point that they don't care. That's when you lose your fans, is when they get to the point. They can be mad and you're okay because they're still watching,
Mm-hmm.
but but if Anthony sets in, it's tough, and it hadn't set in, and that's a credit to Sam Pittman. Those, we talked about it in the past, and one thing that's so important on a team is leadership, and I think they've got some leaders on this team, and not all. I mean, it doesn't have to be seniors, but I think getting a guy like Felipe Franks, he went to Florida. They were not having a good team. He gets down there, they win 10 games, and next year, with Felipe Franks. I think guys like that he brings instant credibility in the sense, Alyssa, that he's been here. I mean, he's been there in that situation in the SEC, and he brings some ideals here that he didn't just win at, say, SMU or something. He came from Florida where he'd won in the SEC, and I think that's huge. And then Sam from Georgia, developed a winning culture down there, bring Scott Fountain with him. I just think it's so big on this staff, and of course, Kendall Browse and Barry Odom. Barry Odom, that game yesterday, they couldn't have picked a better defensive plan. That guy's a genius. I've said all along, I thought that was the best assistant coach hire in the nation. And here's why. Not just because he's a great defensive coordinator, he is. You think about this. Barry Odom's probably a better head coach than Arkansas had since Bobby Petrino left. You think about it, John L. Smith, Brett Bielema, and Chad Morris. And that's not a knock at those guys. It's just saying Barry Odom, went to two winning records at Missouri and another one where he was 500. And, he 4-0 against Arkansas. But what I thought he was so invaluable is Sam had not been a head coach at this level. He could go to Barry Odom, who had been 4 years, and kind of like Felipe Franks, it's not just 4 years of head coaching experience. It's 4 years in the SEC, Alyssa. And I mean, it's huge. And it just makes a difference doing it in the SEC. And when I said SMU, well, I wasn't knocking anybody at SMU or anything. It's just the fact that I just think when you get people who have done it in this conference, it's just different. You look at the coaches that come into the SEC that haven't been here. They don't realize what they're up against till they get up against it. It's a mini NFL is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, you just look at the head coaches like Chad Morris and even Brett Bielema. Brett had a little bit of a learning curve when he came from the Big Ten. So I definitely think you're right about that. You talk about recruiting and the job that this is going to help with recruits. When you talk to Sam Pittman and you look down the road to the future, what exactly are they targeting?
Well, I asked Sam that this week in a Zoom, actually, and they've got, I think, they're wanting. They're really looking at defense because they've got their offense pretty well set. Now, you said they might take another offensive lineman. I think you can look at Armand Bethea up in Brooklyn that I wrote about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But for the most part, they're looking at a lot of defense for the remaining 4 or 5 spots in this class. And we've talked about Cameron Ball. So, I mean, obviously, he's a priority. He's probably the number one priority. I thought he and Keytron Jackson were their top 2 priorities a few weeks ago. They got Keytron. And I think Cam Ball's about like that on defense. But I think what you may see here, it's going to be defense. A lot of it. He said they'd like to have another safety. I think a lot of it. I think what you may see Arkansas get some older players, some guys that maybe. Not saying they won't take high school players. If they get who they want, they will. But I think at the end of the day, they may take some more grad transfers or. Yeah, Sam also mentioned the fact that if they do this one-time transfer deal, he said, you've got to have a couple of scholarships for that. You've got to save them. And so I think they'll try to sprinkle in a little bit of older help on defense. And not saying if they got an older player on offense at a position they needed, I don't think they'd turn him down. But I think defense is really the priority with these remaining 4 or 5 spots. And like I said, I think if they get Armand Bethea, I think they'll take him. Right now, it's up in the air if they can get him. He's looking, about 4 or 5 schools. I think he gave me a list of about 4, 5, 6 schools. He's really wanting to take some business. He's like a lot of these kids. And that's the deal with Cam Ball. People talked about when he canceled that September the 22nd commitment, that was bad for Arkansas. Not really. He's really wanting to visit. He wanted to bring his brother. He wanted to come up here and visit Arkansas. You're looking at a kid that's making the biggest decision of their life. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to make it sight unseen, and that's tough, Alyssa. And I think that's more of it than anything else. I don't think it's necessarily bad for Arkansas now. I mean, Georgia Tech is right in the backyard, so that could be, and that's always been a threat with Cam Ball is Georgia Tech because he's right there in Atlanta. That's right there in his backyard. But the unknown, some of them have to venture out, and. But anyway, I think you'll see some defensive help coming on board, and I think some of it may be kids that's not even on the radar right now because they're still playing for their other school. But I think you'll see some grad transfers. I mean, look at the impact that Franks has made. Look at the impact Jerry Jacobs has made. Look at the impact A.J. Reed's made. Xavier Kelly. So, I mean, and then I'm sure Levi Draper will make an impact too. So, you've got those grad transfers that are making the impacts at Arkansas, and they need that, the older help. Keep sprinkling in with your players.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, that win yesterday was big for this program, but big for recruiting. And of course, the only way to make it better is to keep on winning. Otis Kirk, thanks so much for your insight this week. We look forward to catching up with you next Sunday.
Thank you, Alyssa. Anytime. Thank you.